I am joined by the talented, the lovely, I think one of the most exciting faces to come into the poker world in the last 5 or 6 years, Miss Veronica Brill, the new host of Poker After Dark, but a face that we've known for being the whistleblower on the Mike Postle scandal. Huge kudos and shout out to you on that. Being a commentator, being a poker player. Veronica, I've stalked your YouTube also, and basically everything I could find. You are very clearly deeply entrenched with some of, I think, the best and most interesting minds in poker, which speaks very highly of you. From San Jose, Veronica Brill.
Thank you so much for having me. That's quite the intro. I will slip you a $20 bill next time I see you. That was
And
hot.
with
I
my
liked it.
paycheck,
Can
that
you
will be
like
worth it.
can you show up on first dates with me and be like, before she sits at the table, I'd like to introduce Veronica Brill and list it all out, and it would just be such an entrance.
100%. And actually, looking at your Twitter and realizing that you were single, I'm just good quality women. I think in poker, most of the women are actually like exceptionally good quality. They're mostly very intelligent, they're mostly kind of strong, powerful, wonderful women, but they don't stay single for very long. So, seeing that you were single, actually, are you
Yep.
still single? And how are you
Yeah.
managing that in this poker space?
Yeah, I've been single actually for a while. Like I think it's been over a year, and like even before that, it was like only a year-long relationship. I think I spent last year just finding myself and finding comfort in my own space and actually reflecting. I do enjoy being in a relationship and having a best friend and growing with that person, but I think it was like time for me to have time alone to think about, what kind of partner I want to be to someone, what kind of partner I'm looking for, what kinds of things. Like, I think I would rather be alone than be in a relationship that wasn't fulfilling.
Mm.
And so I spent this time just kind of, it felt like I was breaking through my loneliness. I felt very lonely initially. Wasn't doing well. And I think by the end of last year, I started feeling really good alone. And I've heard people tell me like, I'm not lonely, I'm fine, like I'm dating myself or I'm doing these things. And I thought it was just so corny. I thought they were just saying that. But it's true. I actually feel good. Would I like to be in a healthy relationship with someone I adore? Yes. But will it be with anyone? No. It will it will have to be, I feel at this point in my life it would have to be like someone who became my friend and then slowly became my lover and my everything. Otherwise I need that best friend. I need that bond and that depth. I
Hearts
feel like
out
I'm
there
a
are
relationship
all
coach here.
literally right now. Every guy listening is like, okay, cool. So, step one, become friend. Okay, step two. But I love that. And I do think that, I have a 22-year-old stepdaughter, and seeing her going through the process of dating and what that looks like and what that feels like for her, and, sort of reflecting on my own life and my own mistakes and things, it is definitely the older you get, I think the more you're able to sort of realize what you need and what you want and how little time we have, and that you really need to just not waste. I think that's it. When you're younger, it's a lot easier to waste time on things where you're like, he's probably not like the one, but I'll spend 5 years like off and on anyways for some stupid
Yeah,
reason.
I think one of the worst things that I came from a very traditional family. And so I immigrated from Poland. I was born in Poland. And my parents were always like, go get married, have children. What's going on? You're so old. Like my grandmother had 3 kids by the time she was 19. She was married at 16. And like my mom, I remember like my grandmother would call from Poland and be like, she's so old. She's not married. What's going on? I remember like being 26, 27, and my grandmother was like dying because I wasn't married.
Oh, you're
And so
so over
I,
the hill by that point. Like, no
yeah,
chance.
oh yeah, like at 19 I was for them. So I got this in my head like, oh, I just want to find someone to get married.
Yeah.
I just want to get married. That's the goal. And I wish someone would have said to me, just find someone who you're compatible with, who you love, who loves you, who cherishes you. If you have kids, great. If you don't, that's fine too. If you get married, great. If that's what you guys want. If you don't, that's fine too. And so I feel like I didn't have the right priorities in my life, and I ended up in not so great relationships. And here I am in my 40s, like reconsidering, a lot of the things that I used to value, and changing them.
And I think that everyone listening is going to just be really happy that that was your journey and that was your story, because you are certainly a catch. And I actually, it's so funny
I feel
because,
like you're hitting on me.
like, a little bit, like, I
are
have
we,
I've
is
been
this
down
gonna
that
happen?
road. I've been down that road. I
I feel
enjoy
like this is
that.
gonna happen.
Well, it's funny because I think when I'm stalking someone to, find
It's gonna
out
happen.
their story, it's already like I'm deep in this already. But a lot of times it's disappointing. Like, you build someone up in your mind and you think they're going to be amazing, and then you go on their Twitter and you're like, oh gosh, what a shame. Like, this is just really disappointing. This is not what I was looking for. You, on the contrary, it was I just kept saying, oh, she's funny too. Oh, she's like got all these little gems in here. She's got these interests outside of poker, which I love. But for the poker audience, I feel like we have to sort of start at the beginning with you, because probably lots of people know who you are. Potentially some people don't. We've got to bring everyone up to speed. So you've been a poker player. Talk to us about, where that journey in your Polish life started. How did you fall in love with poker? Bring us up.
Po-
You get connected to Stones. Like, bring us up to speed. How did we get here?
Oh my God, that's such a long story.
I
I don't know how much time we have, but yeah, I started playing poker. Like, I hate admitting how long I've been playing poker because I'm 40. I'm gonna be 44 this year, and I have been playing way too long to be as bad as I am. So, but at least I'm aware. I feel like I've passed that first step. But no, I started playing poker in my like mid to late 20s, and it was so easy back then. And without like getting into too many details, I basically was obsessed with watching this 24-hour poker show we had in Canada that I happened to have on this old satellite dish on the first home I bought. The last owner left it there. And so I would watch this poker show, and yeah, I started playing against a lot of oil rig workers, and these guys would like drop out of high school, go to Fort McMurray to work in the oil sands, make 250,000 a year, and just like dust off a paycheck on a weekend at River Creek Casino in Edmonton. And like there was angle shooting, and like people were really rude to me because I was a girl, and I grew up like I feel like I learned poker in like kind of a harsher environment, and I thought it was normal. And then I get to the States, and no, people were like, you can't ankle shoot here. Like people would be like, yeah, I got a straight. I'm like, oh, I fold my two pair. And they're like, haha, I don't, and they'd show that they lied. And like, I already mucked my hand. But it was such a part of the game when I was learning. But yeah, so I moved to the States. I started doing commentary at Stones, and I was playing, and I was hosting a pretty wild 1-3 game, 1-3 750. Our biggest straddle was 750. It was a stack match game, and you could straddle up to half your stack. So it got a little cray. It was fun. Um, and yeah, so then I outed a cheater and moved to Silicon Valley to work in tech. And I'm here now. Poker Go producers saw my YouTube channels, saw my Twitter, and reached out to me and asked me if I would audition to host Poker After Dark. Being an incredibly huge fan of Poker After Dark, like this show, I am not lying to anyone. I think Poker Go likes me because I don't blow smoke up anyone's ass. I tell the truth. I literally watched Poker After Dark. It was a Monday through Friday sit and go, a cash sit and go. I think they bought him for $30,000. And by Friday, it was like last man standing and winner take all. I remember those days. I was in my like late 20s when I was watching Poker After Dark. And so like the fact that they asked me to do this, I was just, I was, I was flabbergasted. So I went and I did the audition. then about 2 weeks before filming, they're like, yeah, we'll give you a 1 season audition. So it hasn't been official for more than this season. I'm still waiting to hear back from production, and they have to make a decision as a group. It's not just like the executive producer who decides whether or not I'm good for the show. I think it's everyone is a part of that show, from the guy doing sound. What's up, Ruben? The cameraman, Ed. Or sorry, Ben. His name is Ben. Sorry. And just like Maury and Brent and Zach, like everyone is involved and everyone has to agree because we all have to work as a team. So yeah, I tried my best to do a good job interviewing, but it's not fucking easy in front of a ton of cameras and in an uncomfortable setting, in like a non-natural setting. It's almost easier here because we're in our homes, but um it just like there were a couple of really awkward interviews, but most of them were quite fun. And by the last day, I felt really good about everything. The group was so amazing on the last day, and we all were just laughing the entire time. I was trying not to laugh too loud so the cameras wouldn't pick it up, or sorry, the sound, the microphones, the cameras.
Ruben, listen, I hope you don't hear any of this.
Ruben, you know what's up.
I know the things that sound guys know. It's like they know all the deep inner workings of everything going on the set. And okay, so clearly, and I understand you're doing this for the sake of time, which makes sense, but we clearly skipped over like a lot of very important
Yes,
things.
we did. We did skip over some.
Which makes sense. Okay, I get that we have to go there. And I do obviously want to talk a lot more about Poker After Dark. And I think all of us as poker fans are just excited to see this happening and to.
But like I'm a big poker fan. I love poker. I always say poker's not just a game; it's a community. There's like the web, the net casts wide. Like there's media, there's vloggers, there's everyone. There's someone like me who just talks shit on Twitter. So it is a big community, and yeah, and this is, I guess it's reached me in that way. Sorry, I interrupted you again.
No, that's what you're. This is like real conversation. Which also I want to talk to you just about interviewing people and what that experience is like, and obviously I can relate probably in lots of ways. But before we get to that, first of all, so you are in Canada and then you moved to California. What was the impetus for the move? What brought you there?
Yeah, I actually moved to Texas first.
Yeah, girl.
Yeah, I actually moved to the States because I got married, and we had a son. Our son got really sick. The problems in the marriage, there's like a really high divorce rate for couples who have sick children, and then unfortunately, our son passed away from cancer. It was one of the most difficult and traumatic situations I've ever lived through. So the marriage ended, and I I was in Sacramento at the time, so I spent most of my time in Sacramento, living in the States. I love the city of Sacramento, but yeah, I lived in Texas, moved to Las Vegas for almost a couple of years. Worked in Summerlin Hospital as a registered nurse. I am a Nevada registered nurse. Little tidbit. I told Poker Go, I'm like, yeah, you guys got a registered nurse also on staff. I'm not really good with heart attacks. I'm not a fan of codes. So I'd prefer that none of you die. But yeah. And then, yeah, I just most of the time in Sacramento. And then just the last, I would say at the end of this year, it's going to be 3 years in Silicon Valley, in San Jose.
And
It sounds so like pompous in Silicon Valley. Like it's obnoxious. I hate myself right in this moment.
Dude, it's just a place to live. Don't worry. Like, does not sound pompous to say this is where I live, but
oh, it's my Ferrari's outside.
yeah, like
sorry.
If you also are like, and I drive a Tesla, or like what? Then it's like, okay, just keep it to yourselves. But so, for some reason, you're a nurse in Nevada, and then in Sacramento, are you a nurse? Are you?
No, so that was my last nursing job. I fucking hated nursing in Nevada. There's no like nurse patient ratio. I felt very unsafe most of the time. I didn't have time for breaks. Like I had never worked in such a bad environment. Uh, I really, I'm not like a, I'm not like a huge union fan, but I kind of feel like nurses need a union in Nevada, but we don't need to get into politics. Um, but yeah, like it was my last nursing job, and I basically would cry coming home after 13 hours and barely getting 20 minutes to eat. And I was like, I don't care what job I get. I am not going to continue doing this. And my ex-husband at the time was going to fly planes in, he was a fighter pilot. And so he got a job at Beale flying U-2s. And so I started applying to positions in Sacramento. And I applied for everything. Like I was underqualified for everything I applied to. And then I just like some recruitment agencies like, hey, we've got this like tech position that we're thinking that maybe we'd send you an interview for. Like, what are you thinking? Because I just sent my resume to this headhunting agency. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And I drove from Las Vegas to Nevada. I think it was like the whole night. I didn't sleep, and then I did an interview in the morning. And then they sent me to the company for a second interview, and I bullshitted so much. And I basically researched the software that they use. I researched the job. I had no idea what it was. But I like went into the interview as prepared as someone could be for my position. And the medical director's like, I really liked you. That's why we gave you a shot. Cause like there were other people there with like computer science degrees. And I was like, I have a nursing degree. I can do this. Give me a shot. And yeah, it was a huge learning curve, but they gave me a chance, and that's kind of where I stayed. And then my CMIO from that job like really mentored me and got me into data science, got me interested in data science. So I started a master's in predictive analytics at Northwestern, which I haven't fully completed.
That's fine. Data's where it's at, and data's the future of everything. And, I think if you want to be, say, like a quant, if you want to just analyze data, I think you're in a great field, and one that's just going to be more and more valuable and important as time goes on. And it's so funny because I'm such a huge fan, as someone who also hires people sometimes, but also as someone who was hired in like an industry and space that I didn't really have any experience in either. I really love the sort of finding people or being found and just seeing someone for their potential, because I think sometimes people who are not like quote unquote qualified on paper end up working twice as hard and come to things with like a different approach and can bring so much to the table, which actually I didn't want to jump into the poker after dark, but this is something I really thought about, in that I was really impressed with in terms of the casting choices for poker after dark. Of course, there's like, you could choose someone who's been a presenter for 100 years, you could choose someone who's been a poker player, you could choose somebody who's like in the media, but I love that they had the vision to say like, okay, maybe she's like doing something on YouTube or whatever it is, but let's just like give her a shot and see. And I think so often that's where you find, the diamonds basically, are just like, oh, she just gotta like brush off a diamond.
We'll see. They might edit me out of the whole season. We don't know yet.
Please. But it is, and I also like, I had no, in my own career, intention of ever being in front of the camera. And I can say for sure, for me, for the first more than a couple weeks, was like very tough and very uncomfortable, in the same things that you're describing, in that it's not, you can be a very outgoing, very charming person who's great to talk to, and then the lights turn on and everyone gets quiet and you're talking to someone who's maybe not that interested in talking to you in the first place, and it can be really uncomfortable, but it's also exhilarating. And I am interested to hear from the perspective of someone that maybe wasn't pursuing this, also what it felt like for you, what that experience was like.
I think you hit the nail on the head. There was one player in particular who was phenomenal at the table, charming, chatty, smiling, laughing, making jokes. And I was like, I always, would tell the producer like, "Hey, I think that I would like to interview so and so next," or whatever, and or he would make suggestions, but um, he was open to hearing me out. And so I was like, "Hey, I really want to interview that guy. Like he's phenomenal at the table." And at the time that I was watching him, he was up. And so I had like wrote a bunch of stuff down, and then I got busy and other things were happening. And so by the time I interviewed him, he didn't want to be interviewed. He was stuck, like mega stuck. And I was like, "So you're dominating the table. How's it feel?" And he's like, "What are you talking about? I'm very stuck." And he was like this different person once the cameras came on. And apparently someone told me like he's always been that way. He's been on the show previously. Um, I also think like those moments are really organic. And I think people, at least I do as an audience of the show, as an audience of like poker in general, we or I really like seeing an organic person, organic interaction, or like a person having real emotions in a very difficult spot or, in a hand. And I don't like the like overly generated questions that sound like just empty, like, "So, how are you with the aggression?" Like, it's just, I want to talk to them about something I saw, or I really liked talking to them after I watched them play a little bit. My least favorite part of it was I had to do a lot of interviews with people before the game even started. So I don't even know their name half the time. And I don't know like anything about their personality. And it's just like, it's rough. It's like a really bad first date or like a blind date. So I will say that I was quite nervous the first day. It was like a really I would say like celebrity packed first day, and so I was very nervous, and I wanted to like keep the like part of the thing that they liked about me was that I was joking around with people and I could like needle them a little bit, but not to the point where it's like insulting. And it's so hard to needle someone who's sitting there with like $100,000, who has like millions in the bank. And I'm this little fucking peon. And I'm just like, "Hey, little shitbag, like you played that horribly." And they'd be like, "What the fuck you doing? Like, go play one too." Like it's just such a weird dynamic. And so that kind of got me in a weird space. And I slowly started getting better. I had one day that I felt like really off, and Maury, he's the executive producer at PokerGo. He's like the big shoot, number one. I want you number one at PokerGo. And he took me for breakfast and he's like, "Look, we could have like hired a spokesperson if we want someone to like spit out generic questions. And we also like, we don't want someone who you think we want. We want you. We want your personality. We saw your YouTube videos. We liked the way you spoke with people." And then I was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're right." So that day that I was kind of having an off day, I asked to redo all the interviews. I asked my producer. I came in early. I spoke with him. I got everything ready and like knocked it out of the park. I thought that was the best day. Also, some of my favorite moments, I think people look at interactions like only good if they're positive. Um, and I and I don't think so. Like I think a good interaction is when good information comes out and like there's a good exchange. And there was one moment I was interviewing a poker player, and I'm trying not to like reveal who these people are because I've been sworn to secrecy, and Maury will probably jump through my wall like the Kool-Aid man and like beat me up. No, he wouldn't do that. But so this person played a hand which I thought the person was under the gun and they limped, and then they 4-bet jammed all in. And I was like, "Oh, I feel like your range is really capped." It was just like such a weird 4-bet jam. And so the person like came back and was like, "No, actually you're wrong about that." And we had like a really good exchange. And I don't feel bad for being wrong. I'm okay with being told that my assessment was wrong, but I really just loved that conversation. And I loved that it was a female poker player too. I hope they don't get mad at me, but like I really got off on the fact that there were two women discussing poker in a big poker, a high stakes cash game, where like we were discussing something beyond like I put him on ace king. And although she thought I was wrong in my assessment, I just really enjoyed the information exchange. So, yeah.
I'm I'm totally with you. I think there's a ton of different ways to have moments that are genuine or real or interesting, and poker players are undoubtedly some of the most brilliant people on the planet. And so
Brilliant, but can be finicky. They're used to their own schedule. Like I can't even imagine like what you've gone through. Like I can't imagine like getting up and just having a coffee and feeling good, working out, and then going to do my job, and like some guy just like busts out of a big tournament on day 4, and you're like, "Hey, how are you doing?" And he's just like, "Fuck you,"
like I
like
will
not in the
stab you.
mood.
Like I will
I'm
stab
sorry,
you.
I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but I
Yeah, of course. It's
yeah,
poker. It's
I'm
poker.
more trustworthy that way. People can trust me. It's kind of a
Yeah.
thing. It's
No, and I think honestly, I had such a similar experience. I remember someone said to me, "Your best stuff is your bloopers." And I was like, huh? Like your outtakes. And it took me a little while to understand that it was like only in those moments that I let myself be myself. Like, oh, I just messed up, so I can just like mess around or do whatever. And then it took a long time to realize like I didn't have to be the nice girl or the strategy girl or the
right.
like you could just be yourself, and that's actually the best thing.
Yeah,
It's
so I thought about what I was going to do before I filmed that season, and like there's so much strategy out there. There's no way I'm going to come in here as like a recreational poker player who plays like 510 at my highest and be like, "Oh yeah, you're under the gun range, like you have range advantage here, blah blah blah." I but I was like, what do I love most about poker? Like why did I start my YouTube channel? Because I think people are so interesting within poker. So I'm like, I want to, especially by the last day, because on the first day I felt a little bit like I was giving them what I thought they wanted. But on the last day, I was like, I'm going to stop writing down every single hand to talk to them about. And I'm going to start watching how they're playing and how they interact and who's like butting heads with them, and more of the dynamic around the table and the character development, I guess, in a way, than like the play, because I feel like that's where I'm good. That's where like I can talk to them about who they are and pick up like little things that are happening that I didn't pick up when that guy dumped, his stack, and I asked him why he was dominating the table.
But and that's the other thing is they have commentators and they have, is trying to find
Yeah, they have
our
Ali,
space.
the
Yeah, I feel
the
the same
OG
thing.
commentator. Yeah.
Yes, but it's like, okay, you have these streams or you have, some side thing going on where it's like if that's what people are looking for, like that's what they can get from that. And you have to bring something, slightly different or something else. And I think the one of the best things you can do is bring a space where you can allow the player to be themselves or share themselves, show themselves, outside of what we see at the poker table itself. And that's actually something I really wanted to ask you about because I was watching some of your videos also on YouTube, and I think you had some of my favorite and some of the most interesting people for sure in poker on your YouTube. But I think for anyone creating content, especially for the first even couple years at this point, really, it has to be such a labor of love. It's not something that you get paid for. It's not something that you get even a lot of like kudos or respect for the most part. When you do something like that, it's just a labor of love. And so I wanted to talk to you about, what was the inspiration to do this? It's time consuming. You clearly have plenty of things on your plate. What brought you to the YouTube?
Yeah, that's actually that is a thing that, like, it's an interesting question because I never started a YouTube channel thinking that I was going to be this like big content creator um and like make a gazillion dollars. I feel like it's one of those things, like anything I do it because I'm curious about it. I find it fulfilling, and I guess like moving out here, I started it a little bit after I moved out here. I was pretty lonely. I feel like I've had a hard time making friends out here, which is why I'm always going to Las Vegas because I have a big group of friends out there. Um, and yeah, so I kind of wanted to just learn a new skill. And I really love talking to poker players. I guess like poker players who are successful in some way, not always high stakes or not always, you know, whatever it is. Like a lot of them are recreational poker players, but they own businesses. And I just find like the dynamic at the table mostly to be really cool and interesting. So I was like, hey, this will be a great way to interview people, meet people, and have a craft that I like to do where I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not using a ton of bandwidth, but when I'm at work, like it's very mentally labor intensive. That's what if that describes it. It uses up a lot of my bandwidth. But this was like more like relaxing, like a meditative kind of activity for me. Um, and I got to learn like even now I'm still learning about it. Like I just bought a membership with a graphic design program, and I'm trying to improve all my thumbnails on YouTube. And I still think all my interviews are shit. Like I just hate every single moment that I'm interviewing someone, because I always like listen to it while I'm editing it, and I'm like, "Oh, I missed like such a good opportunity to ask them this. I totally fumbled here." It also helped me recognize that like I'm more of an evening person. I have a lot of energy in the evenings, and my interviews in the evenings go great. My interviews in the mornings are so like, to me, I'm unwatchable. Um, and yeah, and so it was just kind of like it feels weird to say that it helped me combat my loneliness, but that's what it initially started out with. And I just was like, I watched I watched a few vloggers like Johnny Vibes, Andrew Nemi, and I didn't think I could invade that space, but I was interested in like interviewing people within that space and people who are doing cool things in poker. So
There's definitely no shortage of that, I think, and of great minds who maybe don't always get a platform to talk about everything.
I one thing I want to say is if you look at my channel, and like this is no insult to anyone I've interviewed, not everyone on there. I mean, I have a few bigger names, but like it's mostly just, I guess, like normal people, a few unknowns that I just met on Twitter that I thought were really cool. I thought their Twitter exchanges were really cool, like this LA poker reg, this pro in LA that like I didn't even know. And he was just like heavily involved in the exchange when JFK lost his mind, JFK from Stones, that 3-day bender that he went on. Like, so he was like having really cool exchanges, and I was like, hey, you want to come on my show? So I think that there are so many cool people out there that are not famous, that are kind of flying under the radar. I have a friend named Adam who like crushes high stakes in Silicon Valley, crushes them. He's so humble and quiet. He drives this old fucking beater Corolla that or Civic that's like tan interior, like looks like he has maybe $50 in the bank, and he's crushing high stakes. And I was like, Adam, come on my show. Like I find him such a like to be such a cool person. We go for dinner like once a month, and like I just like adore him. But I'm like, you're just such a little secret. And there's so many of these kinds of people within poker. So it's not always the
I
famous
love
people.
how the tan, like it's, I can totally see the Corolla, and for some reason, the interior being tan makes it even shittier.
Yeah, just like stunting on fools with his like dated Corolla with tan interior and just like a hubcap missing, like no muffler, because
No,
they just don't make mufflers that old anymore,
no.
like from
If
that
something
age.
breaks, it's over. Like, just let
Yeah,
it
like
be.
he'd come up to me like, "Oh, like a piece of my car just fell out while I was driving here." I'd be like, "How'd you get here?" "Well, I drove here." "Well, then it's fine. Just like who cares? You don't need that piece."
Keep going till the
Keep
end.
going.
Well, gosh, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Like normally, it would be like time to stop ish, but I haven't even touched at all on postle-gate and the whole thing. And I do want to talk to you at least a little bit about that, because I think that really brought you to, sort of the forefront of the poker community and in a really polarizing spot. Primarily, I think it made you a hero. But it's also just, I think, really uncomfortable. It's a very, like, I think Edward Snowden is a hero, but for lots of people, like when you put yourself in the spot of being a sort of whistleblower, you're going to get plenty of haters. And I think it's a really tough spot to be in. And so I wanted to talk to you about, I guess the sort of courage and the impetus to say like, okay, this is something I really need to speak about, and be what your experience was, and what the journey was like after kind of outing him and doing it so publicly.
Yeah, and I always say like run the sim like 1,000 more times. I still would have done it. I reflect back on what could have been the most optimal way of me coming forward with that information. And I think that given how many people had gone to management and them just covering it up, and then 99% sure that the guy running Stones was helping Mike Postle. Given all of that, I think that it needed the attention that it got. Um, Again, like I'm not saying this with any like I'm not blowing smoke up anyone's ass. The poker community's fucking amazing. They were there for me. Like Joey Ingram. I love him eternally. Like Joey Ingram could like take a shit on my car and I would be like, I love you, Joey. Like I will still take you out for dinner tonight if you want. Like sorry, I'm being so this is why I'm single. Okay. But like
Listen, this is
the
not like
poker.
a kindergarten show. It's fine.
Yeah, good. Well, it definitely isn't now. But and then when I needed legal assistance, the poker community came forward. Like in 4 hours, I raised like over $20,000. Like it's insane to me the support I've had. There are a few idiots who still like take his side, whatever. There's always a few. There's like flat earthers too, but for the most part, I feel like the poker community was super helpful. And I will say, like, in the first few days, like Dan Zach reached out to me and he thought I was wrong initially. And then he apologized to me, but he never like reached out to me in a bad way. Berkey was like really supportive during those first 3 days when the shit was hitting the fan. Mac, my lawyer, like actually initially first couple days was like my friend. And then he started talking to me like, "Hey, do you think you might need legal representation? Like if you do, I'm here for you if you want it. If you don't, that's fine, but like if you need any help." Yeah, so I just think I still remember the messages I got from Joey like Monday morning because I had tweeted on Saturday and then Monday morning Joey messaged me and he's like, I think I found some stuff. And then he posted a bunch of stuff on 2+2. And I was like crying in my car because I had just like literally the worst weekend, one of the worst weekends of my life. And I was like crying most of the weekend and like it just anxiety riddled with anxiety. It was just like a mess. And so Joey helped me a lot. And then Doug Polk reached out to me and helped me by making some videos and then having me on his show. So I just think the whole community was way more supportive than they get credit for. And unfortunately, it's like the few bad people who are either helped him or knew about it and covered it up or just are dirtbags in general that are like making others look bad. But
How has it been since? I know that I think for a lot of people in the poker community, watching it sort of unfold in the courts was neither like super surprising or shocking or really uh it was not a fulfilling conclusion, certainly. But I think that
well,
was kind of to be expected, maybe.
well, I mean, I didn't expect the DOJ to be mostly incompetent in this area. And there's no incentive for the DOJ to do anything to Stones because in California, which I was surprised to find out, the DOJ is funded by casinos. So there is no incentive for the DOJ. Also, when they came to interview me, um, like I can't go into details about the stuff that they said, but there were some lies from other people who I had accused of being involved. They lied about some of the stuff, and the DOJ believed them. And you know, all the evidence I'm sure has been microwaved and thrown into a river somewhere. I don't know. I'm just like making shit up. I don't know. Like, I don't know what happened with the servers or with everything. I know the booth is out, but I just don't think I I feel like there was justice within the poker community, definitely. I think we've all outed a cheater. We all have made sure anyone who cares about poker and live streams are now probably upping their security. I know when I went to the Poker Go studios, I was shocked at how secure the live tracking is in a separate room behind two locked doors with a security guard. Like no one goes in there, and there's no electronic devices in there. And so, yeah, I think there's like closure. I think that a lot of good came out of it. Um, it's just not, he didn't get the like criminal justice. Like, I don't know what, like, I don't know how it affects me. As long as he's not like trying to do anything to harm me, what am I supposed to do? Right. I think we got everything happened. I think we had a pretty decent outcome given the California laws.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually, when everything, obviously from a media standpoint, when things like that are going on, like you just want to get those people on your show, you just want to like get clicks and hits and all these things. And I specifically didn't reach out to you mostly because I was feeling like it was a really tough spot to be in. And after you'd already done a couple interviews, that it was like, if people want to see what's going on, they can like watch that stuff, and that she doesn't need to be like, now you should be doing the interview circuit now that you're, the host of Poker After Dark, you should be out promoting. But I was just like, oh man, this is just like such a, just a, like a stressful position to be in. And just I just didn't want to like put you in that spot and be like, now why don't you tell this horrific crazy thing to everyone 50,000 times. And I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to talk and do an interview and catch up in a space that has like everything to do with what you're doing and the exciting things happening in your life, and much less to do with the like stupid BS drama of like
Yeah.
a couple
I
of
appreciate
alleged
that. Well,
scammers.
I'm still kind of in the middle of being sued. Like
So
he
are we. We're in that lawsuit too, I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah,
sure.
we're getting sued together. But I filed an anti-slap because thank you poker community and Bill Perkins.
I love Bill.
Uh I love Bill. I adore him, and he's another person kind of like Joey in my heart. Like I just adore him. And I got a chance to meet him in person, and he is one of the sweetest people I've ever met. And I'm just going to say it. I find like a lot of like really rich people, and I've known a few, like I've interacted with quite a few. I've known really rich people, and they're all really weird. Like there's just something going on.
Yeah.
Either they're like weird because they have to maintain some sort of facade that like they probably made it big early, and then they're having to maintain it, but it's like they don't have the money anymore, but they're trying to keep up with these appearances. That I think that's weird, caring so much about what everyone thinks. But like a lot of times I think it's just like my philosophy here. I might be off, but it seems like when you get that rich, it would be hard for you to decipher between people who actually want to spend time with you or people who want something from you. And so you probably are just used to the latter, and then you're just spending all of your time trying to divert people from trying to take things from you. And it becomes just an odd interaction with other human beings.
Yes.
And I understand it because everyone's always trying to take my money.
Yeah.
But
Such a problem I'm dealing with too all the time.
I'm
I'm trying to
so
divert them
rich.
away from all of my assets.
I'm so rich. This 650 square foot apartment is like $40 billion.
Yeah.
So I'm so rich.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so Bill Perkins is one of those like non-weird, really ultra rich people. Almost to the fact that I'm like, are you sure you don't have only $10 in your bank account? Like,
But
what's going
he's
on?
actually, like a little bit weird, but only in that it's like, is it possible that you're this altruistic? Like, is it possible that you're actually just always this generous and this wonderful? Like,
He,
it's gotta be
I
something. Like, he's so
he
great.
sent, so he's, I haven't touched like the money that was donated to me by the poker community and the chess community. I have to say there's like a 7-time chess champion that donated to me, and I was like, I don't even know this person. I've never even like, I don't even think I've interacted with him on Twitter. But I was like, damn, like it's words getting around. But that money's in a trust fund, and Bill Perkins' money I sent to the same trust fund because I didn't want anyone to think that I was going to do anything with it. It's just going to legal fees. But like he's like, yeah, I'll send it right away. And I thought he was like just kidding, or like, you know how people are like, yeah, I'll do it, and then they can't, or they find an excuse. He literally shipped the money like the next morning, and I was like, holy shit, like 6 figures. I was just in shock. So he's very generous. He's very kind. When I did see him in person, I thanked him, like genuinely thanked him for being such a kind human to me and helping me. And um, whatever I don't use, I'm going to give it back to him. So unless he doesn't want it, then I'm going to give it to KL because I want KL to have a wheelchair van.
I
So
don't know who that is.
KL is a friend of mine, KL Cleaton. And we're friends on Discord and Twitter. And he is basically a quadriplegic, and he is stuck at home right now. He plays online poker. But the van that he has is just like completely broken down. And so I started a fundraiser to raise money for his van. And then COVID hit and the economy shit the bed. And then like it kind of stalled. And so I basically said in my GoFundMe that any money that I don't use, I would like to give to KL for his van so that he can come to the World Series and I can stack him and like and like slow roll him and be like, yeah, what? You know, and then he has to like wheel himself away from the table.
Yeah. And since you're
And
so
he'll probably
rich,
try to
that'll
run me over,
feel
he told me.
so good. Because you're just like a rich
But
weirdo, like all the rest of
that's
them.
like that was the theme. I was trying to make it funny, you know, to raise money for him. I was just like, yeah, we need to stack them, you know, just like
Yeah,
it's obviously I don't want to stack them, but like it's just kind of
I
the
get
funny
it. You don't
thing.
want to be
Like
too sappy.
we don't really want to raise money for a van, but we have to in order to stack them and just like in your face, you know?
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. I see where you're going with this. Well, and I'm like, I don't even know what's happening with all the litigation at this point either. In fact, I'm pretty sure even in our company we're like not supposed to talk about things anymore. But I'm like, that just doesn't really make sense. That's not realistic, and it would be very inorganic to have a conversation with Veronica Brill where we don't talk about that. The side conversation that we have to answer, I think Brandon Shack Harris threw in there some really important
Brandon
ones.
was just on my channel.
Yes,
I
I
just
saw.
interviewed him. So we're friends. We've become friends. Actually, Landon introduced us. And so like Landon and Brandon were my Valentine's dates, which I
So
thought was
cute.
so now so like I'm efficient and I call them the Andins. Well, they've called themselves the Andins. But so he's like constantly trolling me, Brandon. And he's like, I don't know what kind of questions he's asking, but he's
Very easy. And
you know what?
he,
Moss Walls,
yeah,
Brandon Shack Harris.
America, don't forget it.
Moss
Which,
Walls.
yeah, and which that's what nobody in Poland has that, but your Twitter name and what lots of people. This is funny because I think in the poker space, you know, in the real world, most people are just known by their names, but in the poker space and maybe in
That's
like
so
the
boring.
gaming space, everybody's named their own other weird names, and you are the Angry Polak. You don't seem particularly angry to me, but where did this name come from? Are you
So
maybe
I'll
more
just be
angry than you're letting it out for
no,
me?
I'm gonna tell the truth because like part of it is that I'm loud. I'm a very like anyone who's been in a room with me, any one of my close friends who really know me, like I'm loud. I can really project my voice. I also have this thing where if I feel I'm not being heard because I'm very Neanderthal, that I struggle with this Neanderthal portion of my brain that likes to take over and just do the stupidest things ever. I start to, instead of changing how I communicate and like trying a better method of communication, no, that wouldn't, why would that work? So I start talking louder, the same thing, but louder. And so I, I also think people would come over to my family's home when I was younger for dinner, and everyone thought we were angry and yelling at each other, which sometimes we were, but we were just so loud. We were just like, I've never had a dinner where we're just like, oh, pass the butter, like it's just like loud. My dad's playing the guitar, drinking a beer, like we're hashing everything out that we're angry about, and so like I always feel like people just thought my loudness was anger. I also have had trouble in the past that I've like also this year been thinking about and processing. Uh, I feel like I grew up with parents who did not know how to handle emotions very well and didn't know how to communicate, and they yelled a lot. So I grew up in a very yelling, loud house. And I'm now trying to learn how to deal with emotions without yelling, but I do have a little bit of an issue with that. And so one of the things I do now, if I'm dating someone, I say, look, like once I feel like I get to a point where like the Neanderthal is gonna take over and I'm gonna become like this idiot, I need a timeout and I need to just process what we're saying. And because I don't want to yell and I don't want to be this idiot who just like resorts to yelling and then like regrets everything that she says. So yeah, it's kind of like making fun of this problem, like this issue that I thought was a problem growing up, and also just being so loud. Yeah, I couldn't even laugh on set because they like my producer would be like, Veronica, we can hear your voice through the players' microphones, and I'm like, sorry.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. And you will just need to and find a partner who will be able to recognize when you're going Neanderthal. And my husband, in fact, has this funny joke. I also was raised in a family where there was a lot of like yelling and fighting and craziness. And it totally felt natural for me when fighting with my husband to like escalate to that. That's like what I thought was kind of
Yeah.
normal. And I remember like one of the first times I just really started to go for it, he like hit my nose like a puppy almost
Like
and
a
was like,
boop.
stop, you stop. And I thought, I like, it really did stop the moment because I was just like, what just happened? Like, did he just treat me like a puppy?
You,
But it's kind of like a running joke now. And then it's like in those moments where I start to escalate, then we can kind of like revert to
he
this
boops
thing.
you.
And yes, yes. And sometimes now it just really irritates me. But uh, I think when you find a partner that can kind of find you in that space and like take you out of your inner child self and
Yeah, because I work on that, but the sex is still great, so I'm really crazy there. No.
don't worry.
You want to you
That's
want to hear a funny
funny.
story? I remember like I did a student exchange in Japan and in Yokohama High School, right? I took Japanese for a while. And I remember staying with this like beautiful wholesome family, and it was three girls and like this beautiful nuclear family, and the dad would come home every day and hug his wife, and everyone like talked at dinner. And I sat there, like, this was my first exposure outside of my house. I grew up very poor. Like, my parents didn't take me to restaurants. Like, I didn't get out. And I sat there, like, oh, these guys are such fucking good actors. Like, wow. Any
When do they
minute
take this
now,
off?
any minute now, these, like, I'm just looking at my watch, like, they're going to explode. They're going to start yelling at each other. And then, like, 2 weeks went by, and then 3 weeks went by, and I was like, sitting there, like crying at night, like, holy fuck, my family's not normal. Cause I didn't think, I thought every family was like mine. So it's just like, it's amazing how your childhood, like you have to process if you have a shitty childhood, which I feel honestly that my parents did the best that they could. And so like, I don't want to shit on them right now, but like, I feel like it takes a lifetime to process a bad childhood.
100%. And I think a lot of times it takes a lifetime to process a good childhood too. Like I think just like becoming a human being is just like a really traumatic
Yeah,
experience.
we're dynamic, we're complex. We have like this Neanderthal brain, and then like the primitive brain, and then enlightened brain. Uh, Wait, but why? I would just like to recommend that to everyone. It's
Yeah.
a cool blog. But yeah, like these two brains just fighting for like prime time. Like I want the microphone. I want to yell at someone, you know?
It's so true. It's so true. And then we have our own spawn, and then I'm just consciously, so consciously
Spawn.
aware
Your
of how
spawn.
I'm doing it to them too, and that no matter what I do, I certainly will like destroy their life in some way. There's something that I do will make them go so far
So
the other direction.
Richard Dawkins, actually, I don't know if you've read any Richard Dawkins, but he puts out, I love following him on Twitter, but he like puts out he tweets out a lot of articles on like, basically children are just a product of their genetics and there's really not much you can do. Like you can kind of neglect them or you can like baby them and they'll probably end up the same. So like that being said, hey mom and dad, I'm fucked up because of myself, because of my genetics. So it's
Yeah.
still kind of your fault.
Yeah, like either way, it's your fault. But I really do. I'm kind of a big proponent of that whole concept. I think like you can be in a lot of different environments, and if you're somebody who's gonna just like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, that's who you're gonna be. And I also think as a parent, it's important to recognize that your kid is their own. You're not responsible for everything that they do, good or
Right.
bad. They are their
You don't
own.
want to be the micromanager of the house.
Yes, and it's so cool to think like even it's so funny because people are always asking me what is it like to be a mom, right? Like in the poker world when you're a mom then they want to know what's it like. And it's like being a mom is like really hard and kind of like shitty. It's just really I think it's tiring and it's all this, but like watching a human being is cool. Like that's
Yeah,
really fun.
that
Like
is
and
cool.
they're their totally own thing. Okay, we are like way past the
No, we're
point.
doing this for another hour. I've decided.
I'm like, I could
I
listen to this
really
for
like you.
hours. I knew this
For
would
the
happen.
viewers out there, I am taking Sarah for a glass of wine after, she's ready, when she's ready for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get the first round,
Dude, I
and
cannot wait.
I'm gonna
I will
get some
get
Napa Valley wines, some of my favorites.
subsequent rounds, many, and I think we would. Yes, I'm with you. I think we will have many long nights together. I, for one, cannot wait for the audience who I know has also, if not already before the show, now fallen in love with you. Where do they follow you? How do they find you? What are you able to say when they can watch Poker After Dark? All of the things.
Yeah, yeah. So they can. My favorite is Twitter. If I had to get rid of everything, I would keep Twitter. I just think the best exchanges are on there. If you know how to delineate through everything, but at angry_Polak. And I know that like people are like, why do you call yourself a Polak? I'm like, I'm Polish. I can say it. And I think Instagram's the same at angry_Polak V because some dude has angry_Polak.
Fuck that
I
guy.
don't know how. Like I need to find him and I need to talk to him and be like, I will buy you some wine if
Yeah.
you get rid of that name because I want it.
Yeah.
Um, and so Poker After Dark this season, I think, will be available in April. The one kind of dynamic that was missing is I had to wear a mask because
Oh
of
gosh.
COVID, because I was a part of the staff. And so it was really hard to connect with people. But hopefully there will be, I really hope they kept the awkward moments. I do, because
Yeah.
I think like that whole, every level of the exchanges, I think it was kind of cool. If it was cool, I hope they kept it. So, yeah, it'll be in April. The action was amazing. Like there were a couple games that were phenomenal, and I wish we could I wish we could have recorded them for like 10 days. The games were so good, some of them. So, um, I'm looking forward to it too. I'm a big fan, and maybe they won't edit me out. We'll see.